So we're taking advantage of this fantastic spring weather here in California, and we've got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. Bottom line up front, for those of you that aren't into watching charts or crunching numbers, is that we're doing okay. We have come out of the winter in a pretty good position financially, and I just saved you 5 minutes from the rest of the video. So if you want to skip out, that's the bottom line. For the rest of you, those of us who like to crunch the numbers, like to see the charts, we're going to get right to it. Okay, our first chart over my shoulder, not sure which one here, behind me somewhere, is our income and expense chart showing both of those items from July through March. You see the spike on the far left of this chart was the spike in expenses was due to our mortgage payoff. But other than that, what you see is that because we've kept expenses pretty low through this year, our income has exceeded the expenses for the majority of the year. Although in March you also see that our spending is up a little bit more. Okay. Our second chart, the cumulative net, shows what happens when you take income minus expenses and what the net is for each of those months during the fiscal year. What you'll see is that in mid-February we crossed the zero line, which means we're basically in the black from February moving forward so far. Which, if you also look at the previous 2 years in that chart, you'll see this is the first time in a long time we've been above zero. So again, we're doing okay. Okay, so now the advanced visuals are out of the way, let's get to number crunching. The Finance Committee decided to move some money out of our checking account into our reserve funds. We keep enough in the checking account to pay for about 3 or 4 months worth of expenses because we need the liquidity, meaning that you don't want to be waiting on last week's giving deposits in order to pay our employees, right? You need to have that cushion. So we set a 3 to 4 month expense ratio in our checking account and moved anything above that into our reserves. Our capital reserve, we topped off at $30,000, our tech reserve at $12,000, and our general fund at $20,000. I know those sound like high amounts to be in a reserve account. We need to look at things like that need to be done around Advent. For example, our capital reserve, $30,000. If you look at repeating parking lot like needs to happen, you're looking at eating up that amount of money really quickly. Our technical reserve at $12,000. We've always talked about getting better internet service, better telephone lines, better computer service into Advent, and those of you who have worked in the office know exactly what I'm talking about. The inconsistent service for each of those items really needs to be improved. And our general fund at $20,000, we kept that at a little high amount because we thought that going forward, if we have a little reserve there, especially in bringing on additional employees, that it would give us a capability and flexibility to make those payments without having to worry about the next deposit. One of the big expenses that we've experienced this fiscal quarter has been for our security patrol. It started just last month. It is very expensive, and we identified a couple of memorials to pay for the 3-month contract at the security level that we wanted. I will say that talking to the Tuesday crew, it's been eminently successful. They've moved from basically showing up on Tuesdays and cleaning up everyone's trash to where they can now show up on Tuesdays and do things like cut the lawn and do the yard maintenance and landscaping that they were intended to do. So what's your Finance Committee doing this month? Well, as we get back to normal services, we're looking at adding solid waste, of course. The monthly pickup, or excuse me, the weekly pickup has to be initiated again. We're also looking at adding a secretary part-time as the office reopens and we get more into regular service, in attendance service. So looking at the budget, trying to balance those things out. Talked about the general fund having enough to have a bit of a cushion, and bring that secretary back, I think, is going to be a part of all of that. We'll probably have to tap into that a little bit here and there on a per month basis. So eventually, as we get back to normal, we'd like to pull the secretary into the same amount of hours that we had prior to COVID. So that's a little bit longer term, but we're trying to address those things now so that in the future we don't have our hands tied. Also in the future, and lastly for this particular update, we're looking at developing the budget for next fiscal year. We've been pretty successful so far. The committee, Amy, Gariano, Linda Belcham, Mary Shade, our bookkeeper, Vicki Singleton, have been meeting regularly throughout March and April, and we're pretty much got it completed and about ready to forward that over to council. They'll take action in May, and the congregation will then see it and vote on it in June. So one of the things we will be adding to that budget is a service contract for our HVAC systems, our heating, ventilation, air conditioning. You know, the bottom line is we've got a bunch of 70 and 80-year-old people that are climbing ladders trying to take care of this stuff, and it really isn't a good idea. And to be honest, some of the electronics inside it are probably exceeding our capability of troubleshooting it anyway. Having a professional inspect it a couple times a year is in the best interest of Advent in the long run anyway. That's about all I've got right now for the finance report. The next report will be the end of the year report at the congregational meeting. So hopefully I'll see you all in person there. Have a great week, and get out and enjoy this weather. Fantastic days lately. All right, God bless.